Alright, how are we going? Back for another stream. I'm doing more work on my material landscape. This is what it's looking like at the moment. I've done a little bit in the absence of streams. I've also had to delete the writing stream I did the other day because I played some music I shouldn't have, and when you do that, it mutes the thing after the fact. And by muting it means the video where I'm talking about my writing process and going through the motions and all that stuff just, goes silent. So there's not much point in keeping that around. So yeah. Anyway, what are we looking at here? I've now got my sort of dirt/sandy landscape here. I think technically that's all the same texture, isn't it? Just coloured a little bit differently, you can see that. So I've got in there, basically that's just a landscape layer. So I jump into my landscape layer. I don't know if you've seen the previous ones. I had the 7 on the main landscape. I've got this now combined dirt and grit. I've got my rock and stone, which I've been obviously showing off a bit. So again, that's just cutting in and places. I'm just going to go a bit higher. The other thing I've done, I've ported the landscape. So I've from the main level, I've done a export of the height map. So if I just go into sculpt, I went right click, export to file, then re-imported it on in this test landscape, so I could actually see what it was like there. And so this is all that same rock landscape. So I'll do a paint over first, just so you can see the difference. So I'll just kill that off. So that's the very white snow. So at full strength, if I go over the rock, you can see that's all just how the texture is, and that's all controlled by different filters and that are passing in through material function. So it's a little different. And what I've done as well, so at one point I'd actually gone through the rock layer, started adding in all the cool stuff that was in the old rock layers. So that was the normals, the tessellation, the changes in specularity, getting the color to effect, getting it to resize a bit, and then started doing the same with the dirt layer when I realized that, well, they're basically the same, they just take a different input for the noise layer. So what I've done, and you're more than welcome to screen this as much as you can, don't worry about those errors, because that's just because I've got function inputs for everything. So originally I had it using all parameters, as you tend to do. Now everything's just passed in. So I've got my modifier texture, which is what I'm using for height map, for specularity, and for roughness. Got my normals now. Because this new rock layer, and in fact the dirt layer and the snow layer will do the same, are using 2 different sets of textures. I've got it so it will actually alternate between the normals for the 2 based on the same noise lope that comes in. So same as what's happening with the diffuse. I've got a blend, so I'm using that 4 color lope there. So just as a little multiply based on a secondary noise input, so that way I've got that independence. I've got primary noise and secondary noise that come in from the main landscape. I've got all the normal sort of stuff I had previously. And the other thing I've done, although it's not on this level, I'll show you that in a sec. It's got the displacement modifier. I don't even know if I'm using this. I think it uses a little bit for the tessellation. That's just make it a little bit extra bumpy over places, and I'm probably doing it wrong, I don't know. Metallic is 0, roughness is clamped based on your modifier input, and according to what the max roughness is. I think it's, tessellation's got a bit of the same. Lightness modifier just does a slight change on, where is that? think that's slightly affecting how much it's lerping. So you can see here, this does the multiply on the colours based on what they are. So it takes in the input, does that there. Then times it again. I might have something wrong, I'm not sure. Maybe that one is superfluous. That might be superfluous, in fact. I might have to try it if I just link direct, but I'll just make a note. Maybe link direct. So hopefully I remember what that means, but I basically mean I want to link instead of from up here to the alpha and then also then to here and multiply. I want to try linking that straight up to there, because technically this is, if this is 0 then we're going to get darker than we really want, and then use that. Yeah, I don't know what I've thought here. I mean, it's using the green there to choose how much it goes between the two. So that's partly so it can use the default texture as it is without any effect on it, and also directly like this. The other thing I could do later, and I've obviously done this in the old layers, is actually put a multiply at this level, maybe 2 of them for blend colors, to have that as the base color. So instead of having it blend between the default, whatever the texture happens to be, and the blend colors, to just apply a tint before it gets to that, and then loop back and forth. So if I go into my very old one, you can see where that sort of takes place. So I'll go into the rock. Where's rock? Here it is, MF rock. Let's bring that over, it's in the other window. I mean, I've more or less copied this other than the rain mask, snow cover, and the land rain blends part, and the height. But this part here is more or less what we're working with, other than this Stratify blend is now handled through the other noise streaks. So what I'll be looking at is saying keep my rock color tint, and having that, because that's always applied. Oh, sorry, that's applied when neither of the streaks are used, and those streaks were at the time were only applied for things that were almost vertical. So what I could do is actually incorporate that back into it, and then use that. Where are we? Back on the layer base. So have like a default tint color. Why don't I just do that? Alright, so we're going to go. Just make that a little bit roomier. We're going to move these down. I won't worry about the direct link yet, but I'll keep the note there. So I'm going to move this one down too, just to make it a bit neater. So what we're talking about here is adding a function import, which is going to be a scalar type. So actually it's not a scalar. It's going to be a vector 3 because we're talking about a color. And we're going to say this will be called, so I'm going up to the bottom left, texture main tint. We're not going to set any defaults because we're just not. Actually, we'll set defaults to 1s, just so 1 means white. Sorry, not yellow, we want the 1. So default is it's just going to do that. I'm going to multiply. I think we're using multiply in the old one. Yeah, it's all a multiplier. And then pop it into there, and then lerp that down. Or, sorry, drag that down to the lerp. Going to repeat that over here, so I'm going to rename it. So by having 1 as the thingy, it's just going to be whatever the base color is. We're going to also do a multiply. Drag that around. Don't like it going through, but you know, that's just life. Right, so now that's going to require 2 new inputs on the actual way that this layer base gets used. So I'm going to jump back into Smart Layers and open up one of these so you can see what it's really doing. So never mind this Smart Layer. If I just go back to it again, it builds up on material attributes. So it's just a right click, make material attributes, drags it back in there, and we're just dealing with that rather than having to compile everything separately. When we use it here, we're basically keeping that function as it is, but passing everything we could possibly touch back to it. So let's save this. We get some errors come up. Error, where are you? Never mind these errors, they're just because I don't have any defaults set on those function inputs. I could actually do that. It's not hard to do, I just couldn't be bothered. But if you do want to be able to see what your preview material looks like when you're on the function at every level, you do need to make sure that everything has an input. Alright, so we've got our blend colors. What we're going to do is take that and drag one of them there. Oh, sorry, that just disappeared for a second. Now, yes, that's a mess. Don't worry about that. Okay, so we're going to have, what do we call it? Rock. It's not just rock. It's rock main tint. And then rock alt tint. Now we have to do this for all 3 layers. And because these are now done as parameters, so I've just copied the existing parameters, sure, but because they're now done as parameters, I could actually modify them here, which I'll just do a little bit just so I can get something that's a bit different coming up, just so I can see where it is actually using that. I'm just going to go back to my sort of old colors I've been using. They're a little bit different. What it means is I can just, on the material instance of this overall material, is just use that instead to modify, and that's what I do a lot. And that's what you should do. Create your material with as many parameters as is going to make sense, and then go in, create, you know, material instances that do the same thing, just let you tweak on the fly. Now, ideally, you would make like this. For a lot of your stuff, you make a big material master, a big master material. Here's just something I'm trying to work out. So I'm just going to hit save on that because I'm using this distance blend to basically make it fade in and out on certain, not fade, to basically do a smooth transition from your near materials where you've got like a lower UV to stuff that's further in the distance where you'd be using a higher one. And the one thing I do want to do with this is, which I didn't do in the old version of the landscape, is put a mid-scale in there and probably redo it so we're looking at, say, cutoff points instead. So we'd say, okay, instead of being what it was here where it was saying from 2000 onwards, then we start slowly transitioning by whatever, every incremental 3000. So that means if you had, after that 3000, so after the first 2000, the next 3000 would take you from 0 to 1, and then that would be your transition sort of phase to the far UVs. I want to do something that has it broken up a little bit more, so you'd have near distance, you'd also then have the mid distance, and then so I'd have in between the near and the mid, it would transition from 0 to 1, and then from 1 to 2 for the next one, and that's sort of a bit of a different sort of lerp, so I'd probably try divide that by 2 and lerp it, or work out if I can use one of those lerp multiples to do it. Probably not lerp multiple though, because I need to check what levels that happens at, but maybe. It's not that big a deal. I don't know what this music is. Okay, Death Twerk, that sounds terrible. I'm just using one of those, another Twitch FM playlist, because that way the sound won't get muted. don't know if that actually applies if I then upload it to YouTube, but I might just jump into something that's a bit more different. So this is like a spacey, coolly something or other. Anyway, so what I've got to do is go back to each of those smart layers. So I just go into the landscape first. I'll just show you what it's doing. I've got one rock layer, one snow layer, and where's my dirt layer? Come on, where are you? Dirt layer. So if I could double click on that, that'll just open up my dirt layer. Because it's complaining, it doesn't like this. Error on base color. Well, it's not base color anymore. Let's just gonna call attributes. I'm just gonna rename it because I don't want to be too messy. And rather than just copy the blends that I had there before, I'm just gonna hit a 3. No, I don't want a 3. Oh, actually I can do it. So if I hit 3, it creates a empty black vector. So I'm gonna hit 1, 1, 1. And we'll right click, convert to parameter. This is going to be called dirt. Sorry, sometimes it does this weird thing where you click on the area and it doesn't let you. I don't think that's what I called the other one, is it? Did I call it? I don't know, rock main tint. So dirt main tint. I like it better when it says tint main. Just so that way it keeps those things together. So let's copy that. Dirt tint bolts. No jokes, please. Interestingly, when you convert it to a parameter, it does actually turn it into a vector 4. So you've got the alpha component still there. Don't know what that does with the multiply. I don't like it. I don't. Sorry, not that I don't like it. I just don't use that part of it. Anyway, alright, so that's that one. I'm just keeping it. Oh no, I'll change it again. I want to keep it more of a reddish. Yeah, reddish is okay. I mean, I can change all these later. Just want to have it so it just stands out a bit more. Ashen. Yeah, that's more of a brown. So. See how those go. And you can see the preview now, actually, because these ones have all the input set up. Even the UV stuff, I think, is doing a default on here, or maybe it's just not needed. You can see there, it's got that sort of brownish, reddish, like sort of wet rock, ready clay. Anyway, I was going to rename those, wasn't I? Yeah, rock tint main. And I'll do the same again for the snow. Rock tint alt. There we go. Okay, so that's going to close those off. Just save them. Now it is compiling the shaders. You can't see that because it's in a pop-up window, but it says compiling for 479. But sometimes when I do this, it starts freezing a little bit because it's trying to update everything, and that's just bumped up to 1200 because it thinks everything needs to be redone. So that's not good. It's just inconvenient, really. It's not that it's not good, just it's not good. Okay, I will pay that. Alright, so I'm going to try a different method this time. So if I type ram, alright, I think it's just a vector parameter. Yep, you can see vector parameter is what. So you know, sort of type vector instead, and there you get your other one. So these are our snow tint. Don't know why it does that either. When I add a parameter, it sort of disappears. This part disappears for a moment, but then it comes back. As good as ever. See, it did it again. Look at that. It's gone. Where is it gone? Where have you gone? Oh, you're right there. Okay, settle down. Come on. Anyway, you can kind of see what's happening. So let's reset these first. I mean, I could rename them. This one's slightly greyish, not quite, but enough. But I mean, the main thing is that it just keeps the when it's white, it just keeps the original texture. So what about snow tint main? vertex. Right, so if I save this one, it's going to bump up my shader compile again. I know it. It's currently on 970. That's just going to bump. Yep, it's just. Now, that said, even though it's bumped up to 2,500, that's nothing compared to the 13,000 I was dealing with before. And the material is a little bit more complex now that I've sort of cheated a little bit, and not just this part. I'll show you these different layers too. You can see after it does my layer blend, which is the ones that we use for painting, it then does the snow level blend. So that's bringing in the UVs from whatever that's eventually going to be the distance blend side. Brings in the snow UVs, throws them into this blend. So this is saying it's also doing this up here, which is to basically say only we use that dot normal, like so dot product on the vertex normal against blue. It means that you only really start painting on the stuff that's whitish, and if I preview that, you can see exactly what sort of shape you'd be looking at. So I'm just going to preview, and it doesn't want to do it yet because it's compiling the shaders. Try again. Nah, it doesn't like me. It's a shame. Okay, this one might be doing it. So there you can see that's the dot product against blue. So upwards facing is white, downwards facing is black. When you get sideways, you can see it looks like that. And I'll just bring in my little test material, test terrain. This is just a mock-up material I created, so you can sort of see where it does that. So that's just the default dot product. When I do power against it, you can see it changes again a little bit more. So you can see a lot less of it shows up as white. So that's areas where when the snow gets blended in, it won't be as strong. So you'd get the snow where it's white, a little bit where it's grey, but otherwise that's it. So you compare that to this, which has a lot more cover. Now I suppose the one thing you could do actually is have that as a parameter, and instead of blending on the snow amount like this, just blend that in directly. Because if that was a dynamic material, a dynamic parameter, you could say, okay, instead of 3.5, I want 7, and see what that does. Takes a little bit of time, and you get almost nothing unless it's like really on top. It's actually not bad. Hey! So I'll compare that. Unfortunately, there's a bit of lag time between the updating, but that's also a case why you could do it as a material in which I might just do now actually. So this is going to be a scalar parameter. We can just hit 1. I'll just update the figure first. 3.5. Actually, I might make it 7 after all, because that looks nice. Convert to parameter. Dot product power means something to me. This part took me a little bit of time to actually understand what it was doing. I can talk to it now quite easily, but I think the first time when I started doing the dot products and timesing it in, I was like, following some different tutorials I'd seen where it was doing this sort of thing. I just like, okay, I'll just do what it says. I don't understand what it says, but I'll do it. No. Anyway, yeah, that's nicer, I think. So that would be much more interesting. You get a lot more contrast in between it. So let's have a look at the material. You can see, yeah, it's rebuilding everything. That's not nice. I never like this. So while that's going, I might just save this one as well. Actually, I'll go hit save first, and then I'll go over to the rain section. So The rain one, so both the snow layer here and the rain layer here are the ones I pre-did on the old landscape. They're a little bit different. Obviously this one is just generating a level of snow based on what the UVs are, and then just blending it in based on, oh, that's stuck on saving, blending it in based on the drop product above. And so that's where you see this blend material attributes here. That's just saying, okay, mostly use what's coming from down here, which is your three-way layer blend, and then bringing in this snow layer and blending according to that here. And the rain one is sort of similar, it just happens on top of the eventual layer here. What I've also had to do is do a blend material attributes. I think it's because there is a bug in my layer rain blend, which I'll get to once my little dialogue pop-up goes away. But basically what this does is it takes in a material attributes as your base layer, takes in a rain percentage, and then just basically does some overlays. It does some changes to the normal. I actually did find the tutorial online for this as well. Just think there was a very basic how to do puddles on just a material, and then I sort of tweaked it to make it work with landscape, and copied lots of the different filters that were on it, just to not filters, parameters. Sorry, my day job uses the terms interchangeably, so yeah, that's not really what I mean. So sorry, I know the screen's not very interesting, just waiting on this thing to save. It's just kind of frozen for a moment. So what it does, yeah, it takes in the material attributes, starts creating some sort of splotches of rain based on a noise pattern on top of it, reduces the normals, makes it a little bit transparent, not transparent, but the amount that it blends is semi-transparent. Yeah, and then puts it back into the blend material attributes, so that way I can dynamically change what the rain is doing. Now, yeah, it's unfortunate that this is just frozen for a moment. Let's see if I can see what's the cause, but I don't think I'm going to see that at all. This happens a few times. I think just when you're doing successive changes to material functions that use part of the same material, it sort of starts tripling up on how many times it needs to compile the shaders. So what would be cool is if there was a button to say, just stop compiling shaders for a moment, clear them out, redo it, and then get it to go from the start. Because especially when you're talking where you get one material change or one material function change, and then you do a change and it starts compiling everything, and then you've also got different changes that happen elsewhere. Alright. So, okay, this is taking a bit longer than I really wanted it to. It's doing stuff, I swear. It's just stuck on that 50% of saving the main landscape, which is this one here. So right here it says saving asset, game material, common landscape, smart layers, m_, smart landscape 50%. And you can't even see the mouse at the moment. Oh, there it is, comes back. Alright, good reason to take a break, I guess. This is a bit annoying, actually. Felt like I was getting into a rhythm there. Oh, there we go, there we go. Okay, so right, so the shader parts are coming down. So yeah, I'll just go into layer blend, see what it's doing. Like, that's a mess, right? My god, don't ever do this. But you can see it looks pretty here. Have a dirt here. Oh, it's all glossy all over the place. Now, of course, this one is blending in on every layer, whereas when we're using this method of doing it, it's only going to do it where it's flat. I'm going to get this. What I'd probably want is these to be sort of independent a little. And the layer snow one is neater. Does some sort of shading. I forget why I'm doing that. Looks nice, but I mean, not there. It doesn't look nice, but well, yeah, here it looks nice. So you can sort of see what it's like there. Of course, that's annoying. But it won't be like that because we're not going to be blending in this part. So let's see how our progress is going. So starting to get a few components come in. And I'm just going to turn off the exponential height fog just so we can actually see things a bit better. So I usually have that in the game. It's actually running. But right now it's just, you know, causing issues. And let's just see where we are. So I'm just going to go over here. I'll switch back to normal mode. So out of landscape edit. Go to the MI landscape. So this is the instance for the landscape. Bring it across here. So let's see tint. So we're using this and this. So I'm just going to change the main tint to a bright green. You'll see why in a moment. Right, so it's everywhere. You can see, well, it's basically everywhere. Which means most of the places in this that are using the rock texture, as I can see here, it must be using the other texture. So setting the brightness up is a really good way to actually find. So that's where it's over 1. It's a really good way to find where you're using a certain color. So that's not coming from here at all. That in fact must... Okay, so we're getting our red streaks from there. That's a little bit different to what I thought it was using. And then here we're actually getting the normal blends. So that's just the normal rock blend. We don't have the other bits working yet. We don't have the... Where is that? Is that it there? Can't tell. Alright, one way to find out. Set this to... Okay. So that's our dirt layer. So you can see from here I can go... I'm just going to move it into a different window and just change it for a bit. So that's if I set it to like a brown color, so I can set... I can basically just set how strong brown is, for example. So I've just set, I think that was the alt. Yeah. Now if I set the main, where's the main? Let's try. But that's also brown. That's also the dirt, but I must have a sort of just mix happening there. I've just set it to a pink, so I've got the brown and the pink, and that's for the dirt layer. So if I just paint over this for a moment with the dirt layer. This is all from the dirt layer, so it's using the blends, but it's also using the other bits and pieces in there. That green is from the rock, so I can change that to, say, And this one too. Did like it when it was sort of purplish. I'll probably raid my other landscape for the other colours later. Yeah. And the scale of everything's working out is a bit different here and there. So if I change, I'm not even sure which scales I'm using anymore, there's just a lot of them. Don't think that's the modifier scale, is it? Let's change. Oh yeah. This is the modifier scale, which is used for the, as I said, the height, although it's not going to be technically used for the height now, because that will be a combination of the normals and a bit of that. So I've set that to 1200. But it's used for specularity, a bit of coloration, so I'll set to 500 because that's a nice mix there. Especially within the colours to create a bit more variation again. I've also got the UV scale happening, so it's currently set to 4. So in just 2 you get that. But this is the part where I'm saying I want it to be one way close, so up close, that's fine. 4 is fine. See that? Look down, yeah, that's fine. In fact, if I change it to 2, even better. Like that's nice for close. But then when you start getting to about here, it already starts needing to blend. So I'm not sure how far that is. So then from there you'd want it to be maybe 12. So then it's going to go from there to about, I don't know. Okay, let me just quit the game part. So from about here to like here, and then you can see from there it needs more. So I'll change the scale again to say 30. Even 50. So in the background you can see it's a lot more pronounced. So from this distance 50 is good. It's just that like from super close it's not great. So I just do that so I can get close, but you can see it looks like I'm like an ant. It's just far too close. It's like I'm crouching or lying down on the ground, but I'm a tiny person, so yeah. And that's why you have that sort of distance point happening as well. Right, so anyway, you can see now we've got the different blends happening. Here we've got the snow, so I could actually do the same sort of tint with the snow. Just to get, you know, some more color in there. It's like that sort of light like that, and this one could be more like a yep, I drew the landscape there, that's just I was too low. Alright, so I just usually hit play just so I can actually see what it's like from lower down, and also sometimes with the fog there. And so other than copying the height map onto this landscape, the other thing I've done is brought in the weather system that I had. So you can see that's a new addition there. I renamed the sun to sun. I renamed the landscape to main landscape, so that way it should technically be starting to use the material instances. But I don't know if I've actually got that happening. So where are we here? It's got it there, but it does seem that it's not actually updating. But that's okay. I'm not too concerned, because at the moment I can actually manually modify that, and let's do that so I can see what that looks like. Yeah, you can see the distant clouds there look, I mean not clouds, mountains. Distant mountains look quite nice. So I've got these under landscape because I've tried to keep the same parameter name. So I'll set both of these. So one, I'm just going to try the rain level up to 1. You can see what that looks like. So, and you know what, I'm just turn off the height fog properly. I normally have it, but I don't think all of my other settings are the same as I would normally have either. So here we go. You can see everything's super shiny and glossy. It's blue tint. I just kept the default rain color at the moment, and kind of want to redo this later to actually just be happening at a different level, but you can see it's actually quite nice. And now because I've ramped up that dot power to be a 7, you don't actually see the blue blend in quite as much now. I don't know if we've got the right level of specularity then on those vertical bits, so if we just jump closer, they're not really that shiny, to be honest. I could make that a bit shinier too. I could make it to say, oh well, if it's high enough then that multiplies the specularity of this. But you know, it's kind of nice that it's just everywhere. Now, of course, this is more like it's pooled like a pool, so it pooled like a pool. Yeah, that's the thing I said. Can you? Yes, of course you can believe that. This is not unknown for me. Anyway, you can see here where it's sort of flat. It looks best when it's like that. So. And yeah, I am modifying the landscape as I go just because I want to do it to test out the different aspects. I'm not completely tied to this landscape as it currently is. I do like the sort of valley I've been showing with the purple. But beside that, like the rest of it, like the sort of, I guess the cliffs and that are nice. And some of the sculpting in the mountains is alright too, but I do want to also then, yeah, later switch to World Comp to get things happening through there instead. So what I'm going to do is just do a small little dip in the terrain. So let's go, wrong way, shift, might do a bit stronger. Right, so that's nice and pretty like that. Alright, gonna get to flatten. I just want to get somewhere where it's like that, so I can jump in there and see what it's like up close. See, that feels too dry to me. So yeah, I'd want to affect that. This part's good. Like, that's good. I feel like for this one it should be probably even more reduced. So you can see here, like where it's sort of it's ramp and glossy. It's nice, but it's maybe, see, it's actually the, I don't know if that's from the rock specularity maybe. So what I'd probably do is, actually what I'd probably want to do then is when I do a new rain texture is modify the amount of the rain that's affecting through the actual layer. So make the layer sort of handle the dot product side of it, and then just have it that you don't get the color effect quite so much, but that the whole landscape has that sheen still, just a little bit more gloss at least, because you do want, like where it's dirt, to have that sort of gloss there too. So I don't think I've got dirt handy, so I'll just drag some in because that's a good way to do it. Alright, just waiting on that to update. Sort of pausing a bit as I do this. I don't know if that's me. I don't know what's causing that, to be honest. But let's try smaller, and Of course, you're not going to see much of a change there because it is quite strong, and I don't think you would normally have this so strong either. But it is jittery a bit. I noticed that happening the other day. Usually that's sort of been resolved by just quitting Unreal and then loading up, so I don't know if there's some issue. I don't. Right, so I'll just drop the rain level to 0.1. Just gonna get in here again. Okay, so that must be dirt. Alright, that's a dirt layer. I think later I'll do a lot more tweaks with the noise that comes through, because, you know, it's okay. It's, like, at the moment it's okay. It's got variations here and there and creates more interesting areas on the landscape. Would actually quite like to see how this worked with something that had a lot more foliage in it. So at the moment there's no foliage whatsoever. I'm not using a grass type just because it doesn't seem right for this new version of landscape. If I just drop down here, see, so that's 0.1, so never mind the whole closeness aspect. It's going to pop up to 0.3. Never mind the snow that's just kicked off. 0.5, you can see like it's even at 0.2, like it has that sort of wetness to it. So it might be again that you just want that to, you know, hang about like that. 0.2 is actually not too strong. Put back up to 1, and then you get that full, like, hey, that's nice, but yeah, I do like that. Now, of course, the other aspect of that is to actually get our snow in there. So if we hit 1, we should see some snow layers. And it's a lot less snowy than we had previously, because up here where it's sort of very vertical, that layer, that dot product power of 7 doesn't let a lot through. So before we would have had that as 3.5, so I'm just going to pop that in. So you can see there, it's a lot. So that one probably works better for this. Like I did like it, but the realities of the terrain are that this just creates a lot more interesting variation there. Now if I do the same for the rain again. Hello, how are you? So I'm just going to pop this into the rain. Actually, I'll drop the snow first. Welcome to the stream. I'm just doing some work on my material landscapes. Sorry, landscape material. And we'll frequently say things that are wrong and terrible. So, welcome. It was a bad idea, but welcome. I'm joking. It was maybe not a bad idea. Right, so that's with both layers, both snow and rain happening at the same time. So you don't really see that sort of variation there. I think it still gets the glossiness, but because it's so white, like you see there, it almost looks like translucent, but it's not. It's just it's just reflecting. And if I just pop back out, so I'll drop the. I'm kind of just. It's not that I'm creating a map or a game. I'm working on a landscape for a game. So I'm just trying to create a new landscape layer or landscape material, so I can have my game run a bit faster and rebuild a lot quicker. So I'm just going to put that back to 0. So let's see how that looks. Alright, so this is with dot product power set to 3.5. So I'll just hit that. See, I feel like that's way too shiny in places where it shouldn't be shiny. Like, and I can probably see it better here. So if I go here, so this you would have seen some previously. Like there's a bit there. It's going to pop back over, so if I hit that to 7. And you can see it there. I don't know. It's not that much of a difference really, is it? So maybe 3.5 is the go. Oh, let's try it here too though. Alright, guess my old self knew best. Alright, so what I can do, obviously got new people watching, I might just jump back into the main level and just show what I've done with that. So there's a few different things. It's still more of a sort of amusement area where there's some things that are functioning, some things that aren't. And I've mostly been working on trying to get the presentation up there. Alright, I'll just save those two. You may not have seen the save icon pop up, but we'll save prompt. So just loading up the other level. So I've done sort of back and forth with this a lot. Let's open the scene, set this to auto play. I don't think it's going to pop me in the right section though. We'll see. So I'm just going to pop back over here first and hit. Alright, what I might just do is kill the music for a moment. And I'm just going to hit F11 and then play. So at the moment you end up here. I've got some test NPCs that I'm working with the dialogue system on. Most of the functionality is just basic stuff like here, call home, so it says go inside here to the building, hit our little lights, pull up the shutters just so it's a bit more pretty. At the moment the functionality says go to this machine, go to the radio, hit the mic and talk here. Then we get the sort of filler dialogue system. So this previously did have the call home stuff, but when I started optimizing it, changed a little bit, so it's so good. But we need to port it so we can handle proper NPCs. So that is a carryover from my old. I've got this sort of goofy thing here, so I can change the radio back and forth. Not that it actually does anything other than change back and forth. I can hit the radio button and it'll play some very loud music. So if I just I'll switch it back. I've got some issues with my distance blend not killing the particles, as you can see there. I've got a ladder up here that gets shaky, so snow bits that I can put together, and then the idea was to be able to make a snowman with it, but it's not quite there yet. I've got... Right, just drop my volume for a moment because Alright, hopefully that doesn't kill my voice volume too much, but so I've got an NPC here, which is the one that actually does implement the dialogue system. So this is one of the early tests, so these are very much fill-in NPCs. I'm hopefully going to get back to sculpting at some point, but yeah, I say, you don't really exist. He says, oh no, and disappears, because, you know, that's what you want. So, little features here and there. This is a generator system that I did previously had working. So it used to be that the door was dependent on the generator being powered. There's obviously a working sort of weather and day cycle system happening. Got the shutters that come through. I've got a basic oven that you can open and close. I've got a fridge. Got something that may be familiar to some people. I did have this cupboard working, but I've stripped the doors because this is a newer implementation of the main building. Let's see, I've got a bed in here that you can just interact with to skip ahead a little bit of the day. So now it should be sort of daytime again, or not. I'm actually not sure what time it was because I've actually disabled the HUD for that. You can also see, if I go to the windows, you can see just over time it's slowly doing a filter to basically mimic it being frosty. So at the moment this is just going back and forth depending on what time, like basically a timeline. So sometimes it's clear and sometimes it's really frosty, and eventually I do want to make that so it is based on what is happening. So I've got some more filler stuff outside. So this doesn't work too well now. It is a bit laggier today. I'm not sure if that's the optimization or if it's this material. Yeah, I've got this whole landscape again is sort of more or less how it was in that other map. And what I'm just going to do is just stop the game for a moment, disable the test sequence so I can just fly around and jump to certain parts. So I do have this. This is a filler sort of BSP based model of a building I did as concept art. So there was a piece of concept art I created with Critter, and then it was more or less this scene that would have had an aurora up the top, and just tried to really see what I could do to get that looking right. This may become what the eventual base looks like, I'm not sure. The other option was to have this as the old base that's already existing in the map before the other one was set up, but that was perhaps lost, and that's sort of not quite a spoiler, but a little bit of tantalizing information maybe on where this is meant to be going. So you can see I've sped up the timeline a little bit. That's why you're seeing those numbers on the top left. That's just sort of showing what the snow and rain levels are, and they freeze up for a moment. The other thing you can see, based on the mountains there, you can see that sort of layering that's present there, but it's very, I guess, basic compared to the one that's on the other map. So at the time I thought this was really good, and I guess it was for what it was doing. But then, yeah, over time I started working on a new implementation of it, and that's where the other ones come about, which is just one combined rock layer. So I think that's using a combination of two different rock type layers, which I guess technically the other one is, but you can see that it is very much a straight line that goes across there. So if I pop out for a moment, and I'm going to pop over to the valley because that's the other cool part. Most of the stuff you see in the distance, I've used little landscape models from the existing Unreal Engine content, so the different example projects that Epic Games put together. They're just resized or tweaked in some way to make it look a little bit different, hopefully. Same as these here, they're I think all the same thing. This one here is a copy of their mossy cave rock. I've just created a new material instance that uses snow for vertex painting instead. So I just copied the snow stuff I've done elsewhere, and so I can just go, okay, get the brush, go make it a bit smaller, and just paint in, although I don't think that's working. Is it weight? No. Textures? Textures, that's it. So, it's again not quite what I'm expecting it to do either. So I don't know what's happening there. Or am I painting? Oh, I think it's painting away. I don't know. Anyway, that's not too important, but basically just to allow it to create some variation. And probably the nicest area at the moment in this is this area. So again, trees are taken from different Epic projects. So I think there's the I can't even remember what they all are. I'll take a look and see. But there's the yeah, I'll just take a look and sort of rattle off which ones I remember with them being. You can see here it's using some foliage. It's got the grass happening there, so that is using a grass type from the landscape layer. Somewhere along here there's some other stuff, I'll just expand it, it's a bit nicer. The ground layer is a mix, as you can see here. So here that's snow, here it's dirt, but you can see there's not much difference between them when the snow layer is active. So if I hit here, it crashed. Of course it crashed. Okay. It's actually, I think, my first crash in about a week and second in probably a few months. So just restarting the project and hopefully we'll get that back up. But you can see from there where it's going. You do have the ability, I think early on I had the a few different objects that you could drag in and interact with. So if I just pop into my blueprints, in fact, so I've got a few different blueprint things. I've got a kind of different sort of structure to this. So what do we got? Basket, where's the crate? Oh, there it is. Right, so if I just pop this, was that rain? No. Pop the crate in there. Hit play. So you can see, there you got your crate. Put a can in there. If you duck down to pick it up, it's fine, even though the crate browser's around. If you do that, it's a little bit less fine because it's, I don't know where the can went, but it's here somewhere. It's took off, I guess. Maybe I'm fallen through before. Yeah, that has actually seemingly fallen through. I'm not sure why. It could also be where I've got the that's probably what it is. I've got the rain level quite active, and I think that did previously set a displacement. So, or at least the existing version sets displacement on it. So if I just pop that back and put the rain down again, would no longer see it fall through, hopefully. Okay, so it still kind of falls through, I think. Might just have a bad collision on there. Anyway. Yeah, so there's a lot to do. I'm just trying to get the landscape right and efficient again. So the other one used 7 layers of materials, then at one point I'd actually brought in separate dirt layers for special foliage painting, so I could actually go over areas as heavy grass or light grass. But it didn't make sense to keep it that way, because it would take it would do 13,000 instructions that it had to compile every time I did a change to the material. Let's pop these closed again. And then it just, yeah, it meant if I did a change to the material, it just would take all night. And you can see the way that these layers work now, they're much more erratic. They're seemingly following the path of the rock, although you can see there's places where it diverges. So you've got cracks in the rock, which you kind of had before, sure, but you didn't have all that. You can see it's not just a straight line there, it's diverging here and there. So I think it's just much nicer. I'm not particularly sold on how the dirt layer is at the moment, just with its, in terms of its what do you call it? Noise. Oh, wrong landscape there. I need to go back to the main. So when I use the noise one, okay, so that's all noise. That sets all that coloration up. And I feel like it's still not quite right. Like maybe some of the transition phases need to be thicker. So if I set, I'm just going to pop this into blend, or I'll actually get dirt, do my dirt colors all together. So you can see I've got the pink here. Changing a few around. So that's when I turn the pink off. So that's just the white. And what I might do actually, I might make that change to the base layer, even though it's going to need to compile. Just that one where it was doing that multiply, because I think that's part of why this is a lot darker than it should be. And that might even be the case with the rockiness too. So, because realistically what I want to happen is, if it needs to be dark, it should be using the dark color as the multiply. So that's our base layer, smart layer base. I should rename it to be more consistent. And so that was this one. I might try break that off and put it through there instead. Hit save. That's going to probably want to compile a little bit. But 1700 is a lot less than 13,000. And I'm happy with that. So it's going to look a lot different once again. And I don't know if I've turned my blends back on. Oh no, they're all back on. Yeah, my dirt blend colors are still back, so it is going to look a bit different again once this reloads. So yeah, what I think was happening, if I go to base layer, layer base, I'm going to rename it down to, just because if I call it something, that's what I expect it to be. So alright, so my base layer is like this. So you can see lerp 1. Now, this is one of the inbuilt, semi-inbuilt Unreal functions. I'm really using L4, but L3 is sort of self-explanatory too. So it's taking in the amount, which is coming from this scalar. It's going up to here, multiplying it by 2, subtracting 1, So with the 2, it's saying if it's a 0, then we're this color. If it's a 1, then we're this color. Right. And then here it's doing the same again, more or less. So it's basically out of 0, 1, and 2, which one are we? So when we actually have a scalar coming in of 0 for the what we're loping on, what that would actually mean is here, when I was timesing that again, we're actually going to make it a lot darker than what this blend color is. So when the blend color is actually this purpley color right there, we're not getting that. We're going to be getting, I don't know, 0.25 times that. So it becomes a lot darker, and here you can see it's already looking a lot more lively. So that might have been a mistake I made with converting it over to the base layer. And you can see it's a funny transition there. Not quite neat. I don't know if that's still loading though. You can see that's way more purple. Now if I go to the rock blend, because that's I think what we're seeing now. Let's check it. You can see a slight change there. So those are the rock blends, but if I go to the tints, maybe it's the tints that are doing it. That's, yeah, that's the tint as well. The alt tint doesn't seem to be doing much. You can see there, so I've just changed the main tint color here to a more reddishness, and then you get that. So it's quite versatile, right? But I think we also, oh no, we still got, look at that. Yeah, I like those colors. Though I do like when it had a bit of white there too. And that would have been happening because at this, I don't know, no, it wasn't that at all. What I might do is try just this one too. Just making it lighter. Nah. Let's change the tint main again so we kind of get back closer to the core tint. So it's still good, still nice variations there, but you get a lot more happening. Still feel like this material might be too glossy, but I think that's also the modifier coming through. So if I change the modifier for scale, yeah, that's that. So that's the modifier scale. I'm not sure if that's also the which part that is. It makes it look a bit washed out, I think. I like the reddish brownishness, but also probably want to bring back some of the bluishness that was around before. And so in fact, most of those blend colors would have been affected by that as well. So when I go back to the rock blend, every one of those would have been showing much darker than they were. So I pop them down a bit. I mean, that one is already pretty dark. It's just really this one that wouldn't have been too much. Rock tint. The thing we still don't see much of that. Oh no, that's the wrong one, wasn't it? Ow. That's a shame. I changed the wrong one. I just realised we're silent again, so that's not what I want. I don't want silence. Silence is terrible. I mean, I've got voice, sure, but right, so pop the music back up. Okay, not that one. Let's go back to the indie playlist. It's not as obnoxious. Okay, I lied, but yeah, that's yeah, that'll do. Right, so where are we? I'm just saving that. So that's where we're getting our blue alternation. And I'll pop closer to there too so you can see. So this is the place where it's actually using the alternate texture, which is handy to see, because then I can actually drop it back down but still keep it blue-ish. And then that's nice, because then you get a bit of blueness to the rock as well. Could probably do with some more. And just not too strong though. No, you can see you've got little streaks, almost like scars in the rock here and there. And again, the main reason I do love the way that this stratification happens now is I can go, and yes, if you've seen my stream before, you know what's happening. I'm doing a cut in, so I get my purple land, or I cut in and get my whitish land, or I cut in and get my reddish land. Yellow is a bit harder to get, I think. Yeah, oh, there we go. So look at that. Just that little bit there, I've got 3 different colours of rock just from cutting in at the right spot. So when you factor in that it's also going to do some tinting here and there as well, it just creates so much variety to use. I've even got blue there, so a bit of blue. Now I'm going to go over here to where I'm using dirt again. See what I can do with this, because it's, you know, just want to get a better sense of what it's like. Alright, so for the dirt at the moment, I'm using this dirt noise to actually supply what comes through. So I'm just going to check my dirt layer. I'm using the secondary, I think secondary is the one for there. So that's again coming from, I guess, the rock light. Sorry, that's being passed in, because I've now started sharing dirt layers. So we're looking at the red for that. So okay, I like that being gone, so I can get rid of that too. I don't want to save it because it's going to recompile the textures. Alright, I'll go to the main landscape. Smart landscape, very small. But secondary noise is coming from color mask. Yeah, good. Right, color mask, I'm using red. So, what am I using for the actual size though? Dirt to its scale. Is that used anywhere else? No, cool. Alright. Noise, color, right. So this stuff is the dirt switch scale. Got far too many parameters, I know. So it's set to 2048 at the moment. Set it to 5, you'll see. You can see here it just rapidly changes between between, which is interesting in itself, but too much. 10, 50, it's still not right, you know. 200, you get that, but I like the idea that there are big swatches of one colour, but I feel like it's not even enough. So if I set that to 5,000, let's go. Nah, that's even wrong. I think we've hit diminishing returns on this, to be honest. Yeah, that's just not moving now. Or is it? Oh, you know what it is? Because I'm looking at the wrong spot, aren't I? That one there is not the Dirtschwitz scale. It's this one here that's our Dirtschwitz scale. So that's the one that's in between. So here, I feel like that is affecting the size too. But this one here is a different scale. So I feel like that might actually be our main tint. Which means if I go back to the dirt layer, what's going to be primary? Primary is dirt noise. Is the primary noise we're using? We're actually using the same one for the snow layer as well. I could actually throw in something to rotate it, so I might put in later a rotation that gets applied to, say, the snow layer, so that way they're not working on the exact same scale. Because you don't want that noise to be too obvious that you're reusing the same one when you are reusing it. So what awfulness have I done here? Dirt noise. Dirt noise is running at the dirt noise scale. Of course it is. Dirt noise scale should be the one that's used for going between the two types of dirt then. Is that what we've got? Oh, that was the multiplier, right. What was it set to a second ago? Might have been 5, I don't know. See, now that's the one we want. So it's 500, you get that. So here, that's where you start getting, you can see here it's, okay, it's not a clean blend though. That blend could be much, much nicer. That could be this one too. I don't know. Like that would need to be a lot thicker, I'd say. What's that? Not dirt noise what? Can't even read subtractor. 0.2. I'm not sure. So it's this one here. It's using a noise. You probably can't see it very much on this one, but this is garbage though, the way it's doing the noise at the moment, so I don't like it. Really don't like it, but it's my garbage, so you know. I was going to try a few different thingies, so just copied that so I can have a look at it, what it looks like. So I'm just doing a little play here. Let's try it from this side instead, just to see what our normal settings look like. Yeah, so you can see that's just very abrupt there. I don't like that. So where do we go wrong? What is that missing actually? Oh, right, the vertex normal. So that's coming through the vertex normal as well. So maybe the dirt dot power is a factor. Alright, let's try dirt dot power as well. That made no difference whatsoever. That's a multiplier of something, so if it's at that point it's flat enough that it doesn't count, I guess. Like if I try, we have to get up pretty high to. I just set 44 as the number. I mean, that is pretty cool. Like, I've set it to 200 as the power, and you can see that it actually does do something with that. See, like, there's a bit more. Again, there's just a slight. So compare. Like right there, if you can see that. Right here, it's a little bit darker. I don't know if that's even visible. Can you see that? Like if I just put that's the spot, but I just need to shrink the thing so you can see it better. So this part here you can see there and there, and when I bump that back down to say 5, that disappears. It sort of becomes a bit boring. Back up to 500. Actually, you see it more here, right there. So 200. That's nice, but doesn't help with what I want to change. So back to our dirt noise. In fact, that dirt dot power is probably not going to make much of a difference. Is it our subtraction? Let's have a look. What do we got here at this point? That's like terrible. Okay, what are we at this point? Subtractor is 0.6. Is that what we're using? Alright, I want to update these. Alright, they're not the ones I want to update. I want to update these ones here. So let's say that's 0.4. So I'm just going to set it to the same settings that I've got in the material already on the instance. Dirt noise multiplier is 5. Let's bring that up too. So this is what we're looking at. Yeah, that black border is terrible. That's okay. It's okay at this point. There's a lot of variation in pattern. checking what this is. That's the noise. That's trying to keep it on top. Is that a factor? Not really. So if I just keep notice of the top part, there it's okay. It's the absolute. Oh, I think I just need to clamp it. So I'll see how it looks with a clamp instead. Well, it should more or less look the same as the first one. Alright, so I might try dirt noise with a clamp and see how that goes instead. I mean, it's clamping there, but I might just try bypass the absolute and see if that's any better. So as you can tell, there's a bit of trial and error with this, mostly error. That's my thing, isn't it? I always say that. Where are we got there? Alright, so while that's going, let's take a look at the logic of the blend, because we're not really using it at the moment. So you can see I've got far scale, near scale, mid scale now part of it, distance mid, distance near. So what I'll be looking at doing instead of the way it previously worked, which I'll show the old version, because I was using I had this, so it would take in your UL position, work out the distance to the camera position, subtract the blend buffer, which is your first distance or your near distance, and then whatever the result was, divide that by whatever, and that would be where your far targets would start. So let's assume that was 2000 instead. You'd be up until 2000 you'd be using your near targets, and then from 2000 to 5000 you'd be using lerp between the two to get to your far targets, your distant, and then from the 5000 onwards you'd be using your far targets, which are your bigger UVs. And so that's why this would also do a near scale and far scale and pass it in. And how I used to use that, and we'll still do something like this. Let's focus on one, you can see here, so let's focus on rock. Takes in your blend buffer, which is like your starting point, so 1750. And then saying from 1750 through to 4750, you're lerping from 0 to 1, and then using that to work out how you're blending. So it would pass the displaced target. Now I'm not sure why I was doing that. I think I also had it sort of affect how much tessellation was used based on what the displaced target was, which is your 0 to 1. But also then do a blend both on the heights. I don't even know if that's required, the height one, but we'll do a blend at this point as well, and then feed it back through. So really what I would probably need to do is generate my noise at all the different levels, maybe, at least for the modifier. Or maybe I need, because these ones used for the height was multiply of your modifier, so it was kind of not the same as, it was meant to be like a height map, so not quite the same as your thingy. But then the problem I've got is by making the modifier texture so big, you're going to have the height sort of all over the place too. So I don't know if that's the way to go anymore. And here's where it was using... No, that's not it. Here's where it was using the space target to lerp between... I don't even know what I was doing here. It was sort of staggering the thingy a bit, so you could lerp a bit different. I don't know why I did it this way. I think it just meant that the closer you were, you kind of displaced more, but that's a 0 that when you're close. So you're starting off at 0.3 and then later further away it's a 4, I guess. Anyway, maybe that's backwards, I'm not sure. I've always felt like it was backwards. Anyway, so with my new one, it's not this called blend target, with this one here, I basically want to do away, I'll keep this part up here. I don't know if it needs a separate modifier one. I might have to actually just do away with the modifiers in the way it's currently being used, because it does seem like it's creating too much lightness on the map. From there, I don't know. I really want this to say, yeah, distance far, which is going to be R. What we'd be saying is if that's 2,000, let's even say that's 1,000. No, 2,000 is probably fine for now. 1,500, fine. Actually, no, that's even that's probably a bit much. So if that was 4,000, this one might be 20, or let's say 15. Let's go for some round numbers. Let's not be cowards. Sorry, let's be cowards. Let's go for round numbers. And it's like this, so we can change it anyway, as long as it's expecting the far to be higher. So that stays the same. So we're going to say divide it by this minus that. And they shouldn't be the same. We shouldn't be 0. If it's 0, I did it wrong. And it's my instance, so who cares? Right, so we'd be dividing by that, and this one is going to be more or less the same. Right. Well, we clamp this one. See where I'm going, but see where I'm getting confused. So we start with this one. So we minus that. Got too many thingies. So we're saying if so there would be dividing it by 4,000 by whatever that is. So if it's 0 or less than 0, then we clamp it. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. Then we do the same again, except for we make it use just fixed figures. We don't make it transitive, like we don't do the subtraction then the other subtraction, we just do it individually. So the 5,000 is that hard limit, it's not 6,000. Oh, wait, did I? No, cool. Right, and this is going to be running on 10,000. Alright, so first up we do this subtraction. Oh no, that should be going from there, not... that was almost a really silly mistake if you saw that, so I had it going from there to there. So if I, on my material instance, started changing what this input was doing, like once it was a parameter and all that, I would constantly be working with 1,000 at that point, but not actually seeing why. So I would have probably tripped over that a bit. So watch out for things like that, where you've supplied an input to a function input, and then use that input directly. So very simple mistake that you could make. Right, so here we're going to use this other subtract and the other divide. So we're going to be dividing that by that. That's going to be 1,000, or the 10,000, minus the 5,000. So we add those together. And unless I've misunderstood what I've done here, we should be getting somewhere between 0 and 2 as our lerp value, which is messy, right? You don't want that. So then we just divide it by 2, I guess. Oof. I mean, technically, a division by 2 should not be expensive, but we're also talking about floats, not bloody integers, so I don't know. Anyway, so from 0 to 0.5, we'll be using one of them, and then from 0.5 to 1, we'd be using the other. So, I mean, I get it, it makes sense. Don't like it. So, if we go back, not to don't noise, not don't noise. You can see that's another messy one. I'll do more sophisticated. Oh no, damn it. I don't want to. I just click save, so it's A, stalling, B, it's probably going to trigger the landscape rebuild again. Yeah. It doesn't know I didn't change a thing that it affects, so unfortunately, my little change before to dirt blend, which was to stop the absolute, so you just use the clamp instead, doesn't take. That's a bit frustrating. But, you know, I mean, what else can you do with this? Anyway, it's starting to come through, and you can see it's still very abrupt, the change there. You also see that when you move away, it just turns into 3 again, because it just doesn't like doing it unless I'm up close. It might prioritize it, I'm not sure. Or maybe it's a LOD thing. Alright, so I'm not really seeing, but... up close it's fine, I guess. And then if you're looking at a different scale, like that's okay, I suppose. Just means... I probably just need to pick better colours too, so I need to make it so it's a little... No, I'm not changing that one. I just, yeah, need to make it so it's a lot less disparate. So if I bring my instance again, blend, so but colours. So that pink, maybe if I drop it, yeah, you can see it becomes a lot nicer. You still get a bit of it. Again, I just need to work on the landscape. So the dirt blend. Anyway, so how this would work. Well, basically what we saw on that other one, when it's sloping between 3, which is what this would be doing, which means I could use that existing lerp 3. But that's a... Sorry. It's a lerp for floats, not for material functions. Sorry, not for material attributes. But... did I do that? I think I did do that. Where did I do it? Yeah. So I'd actually gone through previously when I was first doing the Stratify stuff and did this, which does that lerp between 3. So technically I could use this. The only... that overkill though, probably. Because I could just... it's just neater to use, isn't it? So what I'll be doing then is going back to the Smart Landscape. Let's assume we've got our 3, which we don't, but assume. I'd probably get rid of this displace target change, although maybe I won't. I don't know. It's okay as long as it's... It's okay if it staggers from close straight to far, which is what it would be doing. It'd still be based on something. So if we were to go material function call, and then we'd go into here, lerp, multiple, no, lerp, I probably call the MF lerp, yep, lerp multiple attributes. I was a bit lazy with renaming it. So you'd be basically going, take the displace target in each, you take in the near UVs in to this one, that, and our distance band would be going in here. Be taking in those 2, 3, so actually this should be the near. Noise would be the same. Don't know how I feel about that though. I mean, technically it's just the UVs that should be switching. And I don't know about the modifier UVs. I still need to work out what I want to do with that. That's really what it comes down to. So you can see there's quite a bit happening. We've got another new follower. Hello, I can't read the name because the thing's so slow. I mean, so small. Oh, was that me doing that? Oh, sorry, I think I triggered that because it's on Streamlabs. It's got this little cycle thing to confirm that Yeah, that's me. Sorry. Whoopsie. Wait, why is it redoing all of them? That's weird. Alright, just ignore that. Sorry. That's a shame. Anyway, oh, that's gonna be annoying too, isn't it? Whoops, please don't unfollow. Anyway, so you can see here, I'd be reusing all three and then plugging that straight back into the rock layer. So I'd be going lerp 3 into there, and if all these were hooked up and I had my scale set up correctly, which I will have to do at some point, that would just blend through. So what I might want to do then is look at what I'm doing with this modifier. So modifier texture is coming in through here. Let's go to the base layer. So at the moment, what am I using? Go up here. I'm using it for specularity and roughness. But I feel like it's doing more. Like if so I'm just gonna go here, pop into, what was it called again, modifier, UV, set it to say 5. You can see it just keeps repeating over and over. Like you really, it's not so obnoxious there, but I think it's also a bit lighter than it was previously too. So, so that's on 1. Yeah, so you can see a lot more there. So if I play, yeah, like that, you can just see it repeating over and over. Now, is that good? Probably not. Damn, I just painted. Paint, go away. I'll set it back to rock. Yeah, rock. Ugh, don't recompile the thing. Anyway, what are we looking at then? Right, so let's try a few different numbers. Just make it stand out a bit more. I feel like it's just not standing out quite as much as it was. I don't know if that's just the angle I'm at or what. You can see it in the distance, sure it does. So if I set it to the same 20, oh, it's there. No. Maybe it's not the big issue that I need it to be. Am I using UV scale everywhere? So, well, it's the same scale. I think it's just the distance stuff now. Okay, so maybe they can be the same. So if that's set it to scale, I'm just going to put scale in here. Right, so you can see here I've got 20 and 20. I'm going to set it to 5 and 5. That's, yeah, repeating way too much close up, right? I mean, there you can see it. Like, that's awful. You don't want that. So I'm just gonna put that to 5. That's okay, like that, I think. So let's say our close scale was 5 as well. Looking down, and yeah, like it's not bad. So what are we using here? We're using the rock. So if I set my spec to 0, you don't even see it. So it's the specularity that's causing that. You really see it there. Like, okay, so Specularity 1 is not great like that. Like, it's just way too shiny, but you're not going to do that anyway. So it's like 0.4. That's our roughness minimum is what? 0.6. That's okay. Like, I know at the moment we're looking at it raining, so it's hard to say if it just looks like that. And the other thing you can see, it looks like this one way, but as soon as I hit play, it's glossy and it's... Okay, so I didn't really want rain, I just wanted to get the sun moving. It's okay. I think they could probably use the same scale. So if I put 25 and 25. Up close it's fine. Like, you can see 25 is not the right scale for even that distance. Close is fine, but yeah, 25 is just not right. Like, that's looks like it's, I don't know, just coated in something gross. Like someone snotted all over it. Snot. I just bump that up to say 60 and just make sure it's using the same as the UV. Just basically testing to see if my modifier scale can use the same, and you know, it's okay. I think it's just the spec is too high. Or maybe it's the roughness is too low. I don't know. Maybe a bit of both. Yeah, so as you hit play, it's different again. Let me just check my rain level too. No, it's zeroed. I know that's wrong at the moment because it's not applying the rain layer, but you know, it's okay. And maybe that's just the trick, that when it's not raining, you don't really get much of a specularity there. So what I can do is, where's the sun gone? I'm just going to change the angle of landscape to. That's going to change everything again, isn't it? Yeah, mind that. Just popping over to somewhere I can see the thing a bit better. Right, so we're down low. Of course it's there. The snow's too bright, I know. Right, so we should get the sunrise up the other way. Where are you? It's gonna be... Alright. So it's going to pop into the material instance 2 and just at this angle try tweaking the specularity just to see how that goes. Just going to pop in the other window as well. So spec. This is currently set to 0. I mean that's the thing. That's at full. That's at 1. I mean, if I set it to 5, any better? No. I have to set it to. That's full spec. Okay, that's with 0 as the minimum. That's 0.5. And that's 1. Barely makes a difference, right? What's going on there? That's 0.2. That's 1. That's 0.1? That seems more reasonable. So if I just... Now, is it just the roughness maybe? I've got my roughness set to minimum of 0.8. If I pop it down to 0. Nah, that's not great. That's roughness set to minimum of 0.6. 0.3. 1. Funny that when the roughness is 0, it's like that, and it's 0.4, it's like that. That's probably a bit more interesting. That's okay. This is maximum roughness of 1. Maximum roughness of 0.6. 0.8. Okay, let's go back to the spec. Specularity of 1. Okay, that's 0.04. It's 0.02. So let's have a look at that. You know what? That seems like an appropriate level. That's actually 0.02 on the specularity as your maximum spec. I don't think I've got a modifier happening on there. I just have to pop in and check that. Base layer. Specularity is clamped. Are those min max? That's based on the blue. Nothing else there. And at this point there's no snow layer, no rain layer affecting it, so pretty sure there's not. Could remove them temporarily, I guess. So this would be 0.01 of rain, or 1. Okay, that's 1. 0.1. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that's just lagged a second. Don't know why. let's have a look. So, yeah, there we go. So let's hit play, or at least get the speed running again. That totally needs height bumping, doesn't it? Because that's so flat. I'm sure there's a reason for that. Maybe I need a higher normal multiplier. So what have we got for normal? Rock normal multiplier. Let's set it to. That's for 2. Actually, you know what? I'm not sure if my tessellation change got saved yesterday. So let's escape. Because at one point I was trying to ensure there was tessellation. No, it's at the... it could be my defaults for the tessellation amount too. So if I compare, for example, my MI landscape didn't really, it's at 4 and 0.3. And it had 5 and 3 for my displacement. So for my rock displacement set to 5. And what are my tests? Tessellation is 3, 4, and 0.3. So 3 is the power, which is the same what's here. Is there another flag? Well, I guess I can check. So I used to use masked, but that was for a hole in the material, which I'm not currently using. Static lighting, pan triangles. I could try that setting, but I don't think that's a big deal. Yeah, I just really don't see much happening there. Ugh. Of course, what I also find sometimes is it's very intermittent when it loses or regains access to the material instance, and just then it obviously regain access to it, which means next time I run it, we'll probably regain it again. So I don't know what's happened there. This noise pattern is awful, don't know why it's like that. This one is still... Whoop, I just went slow and jerky for a moment, and what the heck? What's going on there? I have something... Oh, I've got something that's not connected, clearly. Oh, wait. That almost seems like it's recalculating the noise. That's not what I want. Now, maybe that particular noise type, because I'm using the layer snow here. That is noise. No, that's seemingly using existing textures. it's my noise, isn't it? Because it's a material instance, it's recalculating it every time, isn't it? As it changes. Is that what's happening? I think that's what's happening. That's a bad mistake. So I can't use those anymore. Well, that's a shame. Now, where am I using that? Oh gosh. Please don't be used in my Stratify. Ugh, let me change that alphaness to. Alright, where's my landscape material? Alright, normal multiplier for those bitsies. That's nicer. 1.5. So, noise. Let's make some noise. What's our base noise? Are we using... Yes, we're using this. What sort of... We're just using a basic noise, so... That one's probably easily replaceable. Is it that one that's doing it? Probably. Might just do is... Because this part shouldn't change too much. So let's have a look here. Okay. That's... I might just ramp that power up as well, the dot power. So... I know that one's fine. Where's the... power? It's not the dirt top power. I'm missing something again. Dot product power, that's it. Let's put it back to 7 because that was a good one for testing. But these should be almost flat. Really not. Those ones are. Okay. So I want to check. Okay, that seemed to only affect... Okay. That's seemingly only affecting the snow. So next check is to see... Is it my rotator? I do have a rotator thing in there. I'm just going to drop my... I'm not using this snow noise function either. So I've got layer snow and layer rain. This doesn't really use that at all. So let's look at the layer rain. That's at the real time, that's fine. Have a look at as well while that's running. Base noise. No, base noise is the landscapey one. Dirt noise. That's an instance. MF dirt noise. Don't think it's moving. I can tell. And they're all going through the same one now. Oh wait, no they're not. What about this one? Is this one going to move? It's got to be that snow one. Then I never had it happen with this one either, so maybe there's something else that's happening here. Maybe it's the way it's updating. Yeah, maybe it's the way it's updating. So by updating, I mean the way that it's doing the something here. So what I might do is, let's get in UVs. I'm going to just bypass those two layers for now. Just to check it in isolation. Alright, I'll probably call it soon as well. That's what I... Oh, it's going to take a bit of time to check, I think, just because it's taking more time to compile. Even though I disconnected more things, it's obviously not knowing what's connected, what's not. So, what have I learned? That distance blending between three things is not that hard. So that's this thingy. Mind you, I wonder, probably could have leveraged what was in that light multiple to just do it separately. If mid was a real mid, which it technically almost is, it'd be different. We're saying 5,000, then the next 10,000. So it was different. It could have been different. Okay, so let's hit play and see. Never mind that. Alright, I'm just losing a few thingies. Wait, let's say cancel. Just closing some layers. Right, it wants me to save distance blend and that, but I'll do that when I'm going to quit. Right, so let's F11. Speed up. I just want to make sure that we're not just suddenly randomizing the noise that's here. Always nice, eh? That's less nice that it's just suddenly shiny from nowhere. A bit laggy too. I've sped it up and it is, well, it is also compiling shaders. You can actually see it on the top left. So it's going to take a bit of time. You can kind of see what happens with the clouds here too, now that the stars are up, and so over time it does update the sky sphere to set the wind speed to a certain thing based on a predefined list of possibilities, and certain times of day have more chance of increasing the amount of cloud there is. I think it's morning and evening, so middle of the day tends to clear up and middle of the night tends to clear up. But what you'll see if it actually kicks through is the way that the clouds, when they update wind speed, they just sort of scroll weirdly. Nice colours in here though. Like that there's browns and blues together. And of course, when the snow is active, there'll be lots of white everywhere. Now, even though it says 457, I'm not sure if it means that we don't have this issue anymore. Let's stop that for a moment and just find where the dirt is, because I think it was on the dirt that we saw that. This is all dirt here, I think. You can see that repetition there is just not great. That's the other thing with noise, you get these random patterns, that's interesting. Use that for maps and stuff. Actually, this is probably a good spot to try it, because that noise is probably noise. I don't think it's from a texture, but it's hard to tell. Speed it up again and see how we go. Anyway, it's been sort of interesting to run through this stuff, fix a few small things, show what's next. Distance blend is probably going to increase things quite a bit. Do want to redo rain to be a lot smoother, a lot cleaner. Ditto for the snow. Okay, that looked like it just went interesting, but I think that's just the lighting. So if I just escape and that's selected. They just rebuilt the thingy. There you are. At some point I'm probably going to have to optimize things again, because I don't know if it's the new Unreal version or not, because I've switched ahead to it because that's what I do, but it does seem a little jerky in places, especially for things that weren't previously. Now, I know the transition from 4.18 to 4.19 was pretty smooth for me. I just jumped on the new 4.20 just because I thought, yeah, why not? And then kept with it and liked some of the new stuff. And then again, I'm not sure if I've got all my LUD setups at all. It does seem like we do have a lot more flexibility there now. I think maybe that needs to be double-sided, I'm not sure. Either way, that's nice though. Is this my valley? I think it's my valley. Yeah. So if you've seen where I showed before with all the trees and that's where this usually goes. Alright, it's just doing a auto save of everything. Alright, so let's hit play again. Oh, you know what we should do as well? Turn the Xfog back on, because it's off. There. Now it obscures everything, so you can't tell how laggy things are, I think. Now, pretty sure the main map does have that fog level tuned a bit, because I don't think it's that strong, especially not at the start. It can get that strong. Just sped it up so we can get all this going through. Yeah, that fog level's way too high. So clearly what I need to do is, I don't know if this was like a 9 maybe, I don't know. Do I have in scattering, texture? I need to have a look, take a screenie. I know it was volumetric. I wasn't using emissive. No, I'll just have to take a look at what the other level's using, which I might just do anyway. It'd be good to have the test level that runs a lot quicker, just run a lot quicker, but be sort of accurate to what the other one is. Anyway, this has been fun. I might call it there though. It's been a good 2.5 hours. A few points where it's sort of just, yeah, let's continue that. Let's have a look at my fog setting, because location shouldn't be much of an issue. Much done there? No. Okay, so just looking at these ones then. That's not too many different settings. So yeah, trying to do away with this nonsense. Look at that. And that's why I've got that like that at the moment, because I just did a direct component paint, because otherwise, if I view the layer density, look at that red, look at the white. White is terrible. I've got an okay computer, or a decent computer, and it runs it okay, but you can just see it's like 7 layers in place. 8. Wait, what's this? 8 layers. Now, I don't think that's accurate, to be honest. I know some of these, I think, are from GrassNet, where it's tried to blend the dirt. Because it seemed like you just couldn't do it right. Anyway, and that's the other thing I need to do. I need to change the other new stuff to use the height layer too. But I'll do that after distance blending, because that's just... it just looks a lot better once that's done. So yeah, keep the modifiers the same. Use distance blend. See how we go from there. So what am I looking at here? Visualizers. The LOD's okay, but you know, it goes that way. Actually, I don't know if the LOD's okay. I don't know enough about the LOD stuff, to be honest. I just know, obviously red is up close, green's a bit further, where it's doing that. If I go way close, it goes that light colour. In the distance it's fine. Hopefully it's efficient. I don't know though. I just really don't know. Yeah, but you can see it's alright. It's just The other one I'm doing away with is the ice texture layer. Was thinking of doing. I mean, I'm not 100% doing away with it. I'm not sure yet. I'm just. The snow one was meant to be a little bit of that, but I think what I might do is incorporate that a little bit from the thinking rain layer. Yeah. Because I do like where it looks there. Probably looks nicer than it does. And again, this ice layer is pretty nice too. But that's just the ice plane with a bit of paint over. So that might be the way to go with that. Never mind the fact that there's dirt underneath and it's bleeding through with the grass. But yeah, I'll end with my favourite scene because it was just a mock-up I did at one point where I just thought, oh, I'll just try it with some trees there and see how it looks. And speech. Of course, when you have the ice layer, it does that. The ice plane, it does that too, where it just sort of shows up. You don't want that. It's definitely changed a lot since I first started. I mean, if I were to load up one of the old levels, it's just so different compared to what it is now. The old landscape was a little bit on the low budget side. Not that I spent anything, of course, but I do love that purple too. I've tuned that a bit just over time. The previous purple was a lot more bluish. There you go. Nice little glance to end with. Thank you for watching. Thank you to all new followers. Thank you for those that spoke in the chat, and hope you heard what I was saying back to you at the time. Yeah. I'm hoping that over time the other landscape that I'm doing with the test looks a bit more like this one does, so blending in bits of white and that. So you can see here that's using a height blend at the moment. Gosh, I do this, don't I? I keep getting distracted and start showing things again, but I'll drop down. I'll play so I can drop down close enough that you can see it. So here it's nice. Yeah, cool. It's all white and it doesn't do that thing it did before where it just starts, you know, shuffling the noise. Or does it? I don't know. I haven't noticed it ever doing it. So drop that there. You can see here it's more of a blend through. There's bits of rock here, bits of snow, but it's you know, it's there's one dirt texture here. That color variation is just a noise thing, which I don't know if that noise thing's better than the one I'm currently using. The rock, there's a mix. So there's that redness there I think is from one texture, this one's from a different texture. And then there's a bit of snow blend over the place. There's 3 different snow layers, but I'm barely, like, you can barely tell. That's the, yeah, standing crap. There is a few places where there's ice being used, just as textures, but just have a look at it here, and Don't mind these little bits of grass. They're just from one of the thingies, sample packs. Anyway, that's what I was going to do before I end. Just go through and just rattle off exactly which projects I've stolen material from, like the Unreal ones. So specifically, I've looked at the Elemental demo, which had that snow landscape. Obviously, I mean, this is the major well-known one, the Landscape Mountains. That's also one of the Unreal projects. And then the last main one, what was it called? It was that RPG type one that they did, where they had a few different pieces. Infinity Blade. So the Infinity Blade Icelands is where I got most of the other snowy stuff from. So where that's really come from, it's mostly just looking at the existing textures. So finding dirt in places. I think, I don't know if I looked at Grasslands or maybe it was the other one. I mean, I think I'd have looked at the Open World Kite demo as well. I've looked before and maybe used some info from it at the whatchamacallit, vehicle game. So that had a really decent dot product on a landscape where, depending on what the angle was, you would actually start blending into the rock pattern that was also around the place. So just made it a lot more interesting. That one also had a pretty cool dust effect going over it, but I haven't used that anywhere. I think they're really the main things I've just taken from at the moment. There are other things I've looked at and thought, oh, that's really cool, I would like to do that, but haven't really used much of it. So those three, to actually get to this point, were Infinity Blade Icelands, the Elemental demo, and the Landscape Mountains, was it called? Landscape Mountains. So they're all kind of cool. There's so much you can learn from all those things anyway. Should probably take a look at this sometime. Like, it is a really nice landscape actually. I should open that again, take a look, because just looking at the screenshots I'm like, oh, that looks nice, I should take a look at that. And they're just, fun projects to look at anyway. Alrighty, that I'm calling it. So thank you. Might jump into a game or something, but I don't think I'll stream it. At least I'll take a break. Alright, thank you. Goodbye.